pessoal, boa tarde. Olá, boa tarde a todos. Eu sou Tatiana Sarruan, chefe de gabinete de Biomanguinhos. Em nome da diretoria, mais uma vez gostaria de agradecer a participação e a presença de todos. Hoje somos mais de 800 participantes, tanto presencialmente quanto virtualmente. Muito obrigada pela presença. Como já foi dito aqui pelo doutor Akira, pelo Mário, nosso presidente, e Maurício Zuma, nosso diretor, a Fiocruz está em solidariedade com a situação.
Fiocruz is concerned about the situation in Rio Grande do Sul. On Friday, we had a situation room that was set up for emergencies in support of the Ministry of Health. They are designing strategic actions to face this acute crisis that the government is facing. And I would like then to share with you and to ask all of you so that we'll be united for Rio Grande do Sul, and we'll be putting together resources from the civil society, and you can use the QR code so that these resources will be immediately used for water, hygiene kits, and other basic inputs. All of these resources obtained will be administered, will be managed in an exclusive account of the emergency fund of Fiocruz and directed wholesale to the victims of the strong floods. And at the end of the campaign, the values collected will be disseminated in their own site called captação.com.br. We would like to count on all of you and your participation. On behalf of the Solar Biomanguinhos, we have collection points here at the tent in which you can donate foodstuffs, basic foods, personal hygiene items, cleaning items, food for pets, and water. Thank you so much, and have a good event. Let's cooperate. It's good for the soul and the heart and for everyone. Now, continuing the program, we would like to invite the chair of the next panel, Accelerated Biotech Development, key points that have led Korea and China to become global biomanufacturing hubs, and what lessons we can be useful for the Brazilian national system, for ST&I, the Director of Regulatory Affairs, Quality, and Clinical Assays of the Butantan Institute, Gustavo Mendes. He has a PhD in pharmaceutical sciences from the State University of Maringá, has a master's in toxicology, applied toxicology, and medical surveillance from the University of Londrina, and an expert in sanitary surveillance by Fiocruz. He has acted as a scientist and researcher of the International Vaccine Institute and as a specialist in regulation and sanitary surveillance at Anvisa. As the lecturers of this panel, I'd like to invite the director of the European Regional Office of the International Institute of Vaccines, Christiane Gerke, who will make a presentation on the Korean approach study case. She has a PhD in immunology and host pathogen interactions from Stanford University in the United States, and a doctor in microbial genetics from the University of Tübingen in Germany. He's got experience in translation of science and vaccines, innovative candidate vaccines, all the way to phase 2 clinical essays and or partnerships with a focus on global health and preparedness for pandemics. He has acted on the Institute for Vaccines and Global Health at Novartis in Siena in Italy. And he was the head of the program of vaccines and co-leader of the recently created initiative of vaccinology and immunotherapy at the Pasteur Institute in Paris, in France. As online lecturer, I'd like to invite the academic member of the Academy of Sciences, George Fugu, who will make a presentation, the study case, Chinese approach and study case, that's his presentation. And he did original discoveries, significant discoveries on the mechanisms of pathogens and the interaction pathogens, hosts, of infectious hosts, emerging infectious hosts. The interests include global public health and the global health strategy. He is an advocate of international cooperation in public health. Global public health is a pioneer in research and control of COVID-19 after the discovery of viruses and development of vaccines and monoclonal therapeutic strategies. Is a member of the National Academy of Sciences in the United States, is a foreign member of the Royal Society of the United States, and a member of the German Academy of Sciences. Leopoldina is a professor of the Institute of Microbiology and a professor of the Center Control and Prevention of Diseases, and a member of the World Health Organization, expert of the World Health Organization and the WHO One Health. Gustavo Mendes, please, if you can come to the floor. Good afternoon, everyone. This is an international session to integrate our speakers. I will make an introduction in English. Those of you who are listening to translation, please wear your headsets.
This session has the intention to be an international sharing experience, especially focused in Eastern countries which have excellence in biotechnology. This is an important point to highlight because Korea and China are countries that come from experience of having limited number of technologies, biotechnology specifically, from some time ago, and now they have global and strategic leadership in the market all over the world. It's important to highlight this also considering the fact that Korea just recently, the KFDA, which is the Korean regulatory agency, has just in 2022 achieved the maturity level number 4, which is also an important stakeholder when we think about biotechnology development. And China, and I remember since I was working in Anvisa, working in ICH. ICH is this international forum that gathers regulatory agencies and companies to harmonize requirements for quality, safety, and efficacy of products, which include vaccine and biological products. I remember that China, in the beginning of 2016, that was when Brazil started, and Anvisa more specifically, started to reach international standards for regulatory actions. China at that moment, the Chinese regulatory agency, was starting what we can call revolution in the way they do regulation. And this is something that is impressive to see, and when you look the details of history, impressive to see that now the Chinese regulatory agency, which has improved in the way they are doing regulation and the way they are dealing with biotechnology, has reached standards, ICH level standards, compared with the major countries in the world of biotechnology. So this session will be important for us to see, to watch and learn, because we do not have to reinvent the wheel. We use this also here. Reinvent the wheel is a position where we have to do all over from scratch, all over again. We can learn a lot from these countries, and we are expecting these panelists to share with us some of the history that we could look and we could see what we can try to use in our experience here in Brazil. So thank you for accepting this opportunity. And I'll start to ask Chris to come and give the talk about the Korean experience. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Hello? Does it work? Yeah. Boa tarde. E obrigada aos organizadores pelo convite. And now I switch to English because that's all. The pointer. So you might be wondering why someone from the International Vaccine Institute is standing here to discuss biotech development in Korea. And that's why I'm giving you first a little bit of an introduction about IVI. So IVI is an international organization. It was founded in 1997 based on the action of the United Nations development programs, and it's actually headquartered in Korea. So you start seeing the link why IVI would discuss Korean biotech. And they have worked with the Korean government, with Korean biotech for a very long time, well, basically all the time they existed. So the mission of IVI is actually to discover, develop, and deliver vaccines for the most vulnerable populations in the world, which are basically the people in low and middle income countries. Of course, there are also vulnerable population in high income countries, but the focus is really on low and middle income countries. And basically we work on what we call the unincentivized vaccines. So vaccines where there will be no big margin or blockbuster to be made, and typically the big pharma in the West is not interested in. So where are we all located? Oops, that's a challenge. So as I mentioned, headquarters is in Korea, and it's just very recently, actually last year, that the office, now there's a regional office in Europe, a country office even in Austria, a global health institute in Hong Kong, and there will be 2 more institutes located in Africa, in Rwanda and Kenya, starting this year, and there are still 3 collaborating centers also in Africa. So as I mentioned, IVI is an international organization, so it's not a company, it's not really public. We have member states, as you see here, and there are 44 member states as of now, and the funding actually works that some of the member states, notably Korea, Sweden, Finland, and India actually pay a little bit to IVI, but most of the funding is grant-based. So that's where most of the funding comes from. And here you see, oh sorry, this pointer is weird. So here you see in a bit more detail how IVI does it. So Discover is basically all the basic research. It can be in-house development, it can helping others. There are labs in Korea. They do everything from assay development, new strains, vaccine development, process development in the science department. The develop department is mostly clinical trials, regulatory help, contacts with manufacturers, but you might see that there's actually no manufacturing in the IVI activities. So if we develop vaccines, they are all licensed to commercialization partners or production partners. Delivery here is mostly when the vaccine is already licensed for post-marketing licensure, follow-up, maybe if still needed, WHO qualification, and rather at the beginning of the whole pipeline is the epidemiological surveillance to see which vaccines are the most important. So basically, IVI does vaccine development from end to end. But I'm not here to discuss IVI. So let's talk about Korean biotech. And here, when I looked at my slides and was yesterday in the panel for the challenges or how can we jumpstart the Brazilian biotech, I think it was Dr. Akira who said, well, now with the COVID vaccine, there's an increased discussion how Brazil can become self-sufficient. Korea had that discussion with the pandemic flu in 2009. Because they had some internal flu vaccine production, but for the pandemic vaccine, it was not meant to be internal. They tried to purchase the vaccine. They actually committed to purchase from the US, but the US had a rule that if they need the vaccine they produce within the country, they can cancel your contract. So Korea had paid for it, but at the end they couldn't get the vaccine. So this really sparked the discussion, how can we avoid this in the future? And basically they came with the very ambitious aims to become self-sufficient for vaccine production. At that time, it was 2010, they were 20% self-sufficient. The target is 80%, so quite a jump. And they also want to become vaccine manufacturing country number 5 in terms of volume economy. At the time, they were number 11. So just to complete the flu story, it's eventually, of course, they got vaccine for the pandemic influenza, but then also the Ministry of Health established what's called a Transgovernmental Enterprise of Pandemic Influenza in Korea. There was the first spark of funding, 65 million in this case, and it has resulted already in the approval of a cell-based vaccine from SK Bioscience. But leaving flu, more in general, it was really the year 2010 that is sort of the start of a new growth of biotech in Korea. And you see here major things that actually, came together. So government investment virtually doubled, private sector investment tripled, and patents also doubled. If you wonder about the conversion, it's, I would say it's roughly about 1,000, the easiest. So 1,001 come to $1. It's a little bit less in dollars, but for the approximation, close enough. So this slide really highlights a lot of the actions that came together. So government had really identified biotech as a future technology. And then the Korean government is quite pragmatic. Once they decide, they think about the money and they execute. So there was money flowing in, as you see in the next slides. It was also a lot about innovation. So if you have new innovation, you can create new things, as was discussed this morning in the panel. It's not just recreating what others have done. So there are more opportunities for growth. And right now, for example, Korea is one of the most developed technologies for patches, like the ones you put on the skin. They use it in cosmetics, not yet in vaccines. Some big companies are not interested, but maybe some of the small companies in Korea could move it forward. Then a lot of large Korean companies actually picked the biotechnology as a sector also in around 2010. So for example, when I hear Samsung, I think about telephones, but not about biotechnology. But they have actually become one of the largest CDMOs in Korea to produce, well, whatever you ask them to produce. SK, the same. It was in energy at that time. They started SK Chemicals, and then later on it became, or it was a spin-off to SK Bioscience. New companies were founded. For example, ENG Biologics. Dr. Parks was here on the panel for the DVMM manufacturers yesterday. I mean, ENG Biologics started in 2010. Actually, the oral cholera vaccine from IVI was the first project they worked with. Now they supply 90% of the world's supply of the cholera vaccine, and they've also picked up other products. So there was really a conversion between the IVI interest and ENG Biologics interest to help them grow. But then a lot of additional things happened in Korea. So in 2000, so basically they started discussing with companies, thinking what is really needed, what do we do? And the first concrete action now for vaccine specific was in 2016, the action what is now called Vaccine 3.0, which was basically a $200,000 investment to boost, to build the first CMOs. And I'll explain a bit more on the next slides. In 2018, the Right Fund was created. So as you heard this morning about the GHIT, the Right Fund is a combination of funding from the Korean government, which is about 50%, 25% funding from the Gates Foundation, 25% funding from Korean government, from Korean companies. And from the time it was started in 2018, by now the volume has doubled. And the aim of the Right Fund was really to basically address the first valley of death we discussed this morning. Academia has a lot of nice ideas, and then no funds or no means or no knowledge to move forward. And the Right Fund hits exactly there, to take the projects from the academia, help them to move forward to companies to get it produced, to at least move to a phase 1 trial. The Vital then was a later initiative in Korea in 2020. It was another $200,000 investment, more focused on clinical trials. And now we are talking even about the K vaccine hub, which is a $2 billion investment. So you can already see that some of the factor in Korea was definitely money coming from the government. On the very bottom here, you see the self-sufficiency of Korea in vaccines. As mentioned, it was about 20% when all the action started. In 22, it was maybe around 40, sometimes 50% is not quite defined. And the goal to reach 80% now looks like maybe 2030. And these were just the different partners IVI has worked on the way. But to go a bit more into detail on the initiatives. So here's the Vaccine 3.0 from 2016. That was really to support the vaccine R&D. So they built actually a research center with some, really for research and vaccine development, which is the one part. And then there were 2 CMOs exclusively for vaccines, one based on animal cell culture, so you would grow viral vectors, etc. One for microbiology products, so if you want to make killed bacteria, life attenuated bacteria, similar. And it was actually the world's first public CMO, and production size was a bit beyond the phase 1. I mean, it could go up to 1,000 liters and even 200 liters in the BSL-3 production system. So this is what then allowed some of the small companies to go and have their vaccines produced here and continue to clinical trial development. Then for the Vital, so this is the Vaccine Innovative Technology Alliance, was funded in 2020. And here the mission really came back again to the vaccine self-sovereignty. And they now thought about what all needs to be strengthened to actually get it. So with the Vaccine 3.0, they had built the first CMOs. Here now the goal was to focus more on the clinical conduct, clinical trial development, regulatory development, as Gustavo already referred to, but also training. Because you have to think, if you want to do all of this, you also need PhDs, you need technicians, you need people who know about vaccines. And that's a big part of the aim here. So here again, then the aim to become among the big 5 was again reiterated. So you see the period is aimed at 2020 to 2029. Here there are about $200 million to complete 7 vaccine trials, including 3 for the National Immunization Program. And here the target was still really the National Immunization Program, so the childhood vaccines, not any pandemic vaccines, to look at that and also other global unmet needs for vaccines or new technologies. So here it's a bit more in detail about the goals for example, in the first case, the self-sufficiency. Here the status was, it started at 40%, it should go to 80%. And the vaccines they wanted to boost here is Japanese encephalitis, the DTP, hepatitis, and HPV. So you see it's not any COVID, MERS, SARS, etc. These are really the vaccines that were needed in the country. Of course, more on the researchy side, they were also looking at a lot of vaccines for the global unmet need, and then thinking about vaccine technologies, what's really needed. But the big boost now comes, at least financially, with the K Vaccine Hub. But suddenly you also see a transition of the priorities. So this was born by the COVID pandemic. And suddenly the ambition was not only to become self-sufficient, but actually to export. So now there's much more goal exporting vaccines. And the 2 billion will actually build the manufacturing facilities, or aim to build the manufacturing facilities that will be required for that. So to look a little bit at the shift, so you see here the vaccine self-sufficiency. If you look at the scale on the bottom, you see that are sort of the old vaccines, of which many are the childhood vaccines. And the vital, you see, was still targeting really those vaccines. But now with the COVID pandemic, there's the aim to get new technologies to Korea or to develop new technologies to really become a global leader, not only for the currently pandemic vaccines, but even to address future pandemics. So there's a bit of a shift away from the self-sufficiency to the future pandemics. Sorry. And this is only an example how it looks now. So for COVID, Korea was not yet aiming at being self-sufficient. It was actually the plan to buy. But at the same time, they also developed vaccines which now can be used as booster. And for example, the one from SK Bioscience is now approved. Others are in phase 3 trials. Some have stopped. But it's now a very rich landscape. Many institutions have tried to develop. And it's just a sign of that the whole principle of innovation and trying to build is working, even if for this pandemic, or the last one luckily, it was still, let's say, too early and also not planned. A completely different aspect around all of this is really training. So you might be aware that WHO actually had a call for what they call a global biomanufacturing training hub. And several countries applied, and Korea actually got the go. So there's a lot of emphasis right now. The first iterations have started. There's a, let's say, more like a theoretical course, which is the module 1. Anyway, you will find it. So that started last year, and it will build and build. So first it's a theoretical course. Let's say it gives in 2 weeks a whole overview of vaccine development from research through preclinical, what's all needed, toxicology studies, clinical trials, what's needed for licensure. So it's a big package for 2 weeks. But then it's followed up with courses more on the GXP training. So those 2 exist already. It's still a bit more theoretical, but then it will go into hands-on training, more modules to arrive. You see here there's, the last one will be about entrepreneur training, which was also a topic this morning, that just because you have the technology, you will still not know how to go forward. So it's a big effort, really. So at the moment, it's still on the introductory and the GMP. These are the ones that have been implemented, and then you see the intensive course. And at the end, it should be a master degree course, and actually what it's called the Global Biocampus Program. So here are just a few impressions how it looks like. The courses at the moment is between case studies, lectures, mini conventions. Sorry, I cannot read it there. Visits to companies, and of course here the GXP experience. And this is a summary basically of the slide before, showing you where it all goes. And this is already it, what I have to say. I hope you can find some useful information in it, and I look forward to the discussion. I want to thank Mangi Song, who is the Deputy Director General of Science at IVI. I mean, he has been in IVI, I think, about 20 years, so he has worked with the Korean government and the Korean industry really from day one. And normally he would give this presentation and not me. So he gave me a lot of his slides, and so thanks to him. And then the partners in Korea, the funding partners, without whom the work also wouldn't have been possible, because, for example, the first project with U Biologics was funded by the Gates Foundation. And then all the other partners IVI works with, and of course the colleagues at IVI. Thank you.
Now we are ready to hear Chinese perspectives from Dr. George Gao. I'm just checking if everything set already. Dr. Gao, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear. I'm ready. Thank you.
Welcome, welcome.
Can I share my slides?
Yes.
Okay,
No,
I'll
no,
share
no,
my slides.
Sorry, just a moment. It's opening. Still a black
Can you see it?
screen. Oh, yeah, but it's not in a presentation mode. It's just.
Can you see my slide now?
We are seeing the overview of your presentation, but not the slides. You should
Oh, still not the slide?
You should put in a presentation mode.
Hold on, let me try. I think I already put it in the presentation, but I don't know why. Hold on a second. Is this okay now?
Not yet. It's
Still not yet.
Yeah, we are seeing very short, very small slides. You should share the window. You should share the window with the presentation. I don't know if you're using two screens.
I don't actually. Let me try again.
Yes, please.
I don't know what's the problem then. Let me try to stop the. Let me try the.
Same thing. No, we cannot see, but
You still cannot see it?
no. What we can do if
I'm
it's,
sorry.
yeah.
Let me try again. Sorry. Let me stop the sharing and then restart. Let me try restart. Sorry
Okay.
for that. Is that okay now? Still not okay?
It's not. It's still not. We are considering here that when you press share, you have to choose a different screen or a different file, because what we
Okay,
are
let me try again.
what we are seeing is the list of slides, but not the slides properly. So, and okay, now it's better, yeah. Yeah. Yes, presentation. Yes, great.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm sorry for that. It's a great pleasure for me to be here.
Thank
Today,
you.
I'm here on behalf of the Chinese Society of Biotechnology. So I was asked to share our experience and lessons we learned for the biotechnology industry in China. As a current president of the Chinese Society of Biotechnology, you know, I'm also the former Director General of China CDC. So I have the capacity really to share with you, for a lot of things. So first, I try to share with you the driving force, advantage. China have the different systems at the moment, and we have the different strategy from the US or the other countries. I want to give you a very brief introduction about how and what China is doing. And second, I will say like the previous speaker talking something about vaccines. I also want to talk something about the challenges and the opportunities of the COVID-19 for our biopharmaceuticals. And this time, as you know, we developed our own. I call it China's vaccine. I'm sorry, there's a pronunciation problem here for vaccine. And lastly, I want to share with you my view about the collaboration between China and Brazil. Let me say, for China, as I said, we have a different system. And we always have the government guided by economy and biotechnology strategies. For a long time, actually, under the leadership of the National Development and Reform Commission, and the work is done by my society. We also have this China Bioeconomy Development Report, annual report. So this annual report gave the guideline for the bioindustry development, in China. In my opinion, this is very, very important. This is the stimulus from both the central government and also from the local or provincial government, to guide the bioeconomy or biotechnology development. The society where I am the president of the movement, we all have all these prominent scientists as the leader of this, biotechnology. It was established in 1993. We have the government guided outline. We also have the academic related guideline like the Chinese Society of Biotechnology. So in my opinion, this is very important for our in times of the kind of strategic plan for the whole biotechnology. As you know, the developmental process of bioeconomy industry in China, bioagricultural economy. So this is very important. Bioindustrial, so this is another part. At the moment, that because the computer science and information AI driven, so this is also is guided in China. And more importantly, we are working on the green development. So this green development is very, very important for for China's whole themes. So when you are talking about the economy, we want to have the green development. So this is, at the moment, in my opinion, is very important in China. Now, our president called for new, we translate this one as a new quality productivity. In my opinion, that's a innovation driven. So China invests a lot of money, funds for the innovation, especially for the society, national institutes, and university. I will give you some examples at the moment. So in China, historically, we address something more about biotechnology. This is more of the academic field. And the academic field will support for the bioindustrial entrepreneurship. And then we are expand more to the bioeconomy. So, this is the general idea about what we are doing. This is reflected in our 14th five-year plan for the bioeconomy. So biotechnology, and for China, we call it the 5-10 trillion pillars of the strategy. First, new generation of information technology, and the historical biotechnology, and green low carbon industry, and high-end equipment, the new materials, and more importantly at the moment, digital creativity. So these are 5 pillars we address more in our 5-year plan annual report. The driving force for the rapid development of the China's biotechnology industry. First, insensitive policy support. This is, I already said, from the central government and also the local government. And then strong market potential. China has 1.4 billion population. So we have that market potential. And also the complete industrial chain. China is such a big country. Though we are part of the global economy or globalization, but China itself, we can really sell industrial chain is always there. And fourthly, is a sustainable development by innovation. When you compare with the US, the US biotechnology and manufacturing, they always have their own plan. In March 2023, the White House Office of Science Technology Policy, they released their report. And they are they are doing similar thing. I call it as 5 specific areas: climate change solutions, food and agriculture innovation, supply chain resilience, and home health, and cross-cutting frontiers promotion. So home health, again, go anywhere. So this is very important. I think, very similar. So with the U.S. system, but China, the government driven, more important than the U.S. The U.S. the private sectors, especially for the VC, venture capitalists, they are playing more important role than in China. So this is what is the White House, what they have for the low carbon, green, and circular economic development. So they address more for the biomanufacturing. Look at the other areas in the world. For the European Union, they have their European Union sustainable by economy. They are stretching the link between economy, society, and environment. And also, especially for the Germany, they have their own national bioeconomy policy strategy. Again, Japan also, is doing the same thing. Korea, or you heard from the previous speaker, Korea is doing something very similar. Look at what happened in China. I give you a list about what China's national plan. In 2015, 2016, we also have this annual stimulus, for the biotechnology entrepreneurship promotion. So this is very, very important, as I said from very earlier. In the 14th five-year plan, in progress. And we want to stress the leading role of the national strategy. We want to focus on an integrated supply. We also want to do the biomanufacturing industry, and we want to accelerate biomedical innovation. We also want to accelerate the integration and stressing the development and utilization of biological resources. Biological resources, especially under the Chinese Academy of Sciences, where our Institute of Microbiology is located. And we also enhance biosafety governance. So as you know, after the COVID-19, people always challenge about biosafety and biosecurity. So China at the moment, we address more for the biotechnology field in the capacity of biosafety, and also promote Chinese medicine. And the most Chinese traditional medicine was raised in a very important role. So this is the structure of China's bioeconomy industry chain. Upstream, this is university and national institutes like the Chinese Academy of Sciences. And in the midstream, we have 4 major subsectors: biomedicine, biological agriculture, biomass substitution, and biosafety. And the downstream, of course, we have this medicine, agriculture, and sustainable energy. And again, it's in the government system. So first, in the biomedicine. In that biomedicine, China has a huge market here. For the last 40 years, this field developed very, very quickly. And the bulk fermentation products, historically, China is very good in fermentation field. Chinese vinegar, Chinese vodka, like alcohol production. All this, it's in a very good form at the moment in China. Again, bio-based materials. So we pay more attention for the bio-based materials. Again, I mentioned about the green development for the bioeconomy, energy. One of my colleagues, they are also working on the biological environmental protection. So this is important. Recently, from my colleague, published in Science, they did from the carbon dioxide directly into starch. This is very important. The paper published last year in Science called Cell-Free Chemoenzymatic Starch Synthesis from Carbon Dioxide. This is really a breakthrough for the theory. So this is from the Tianjin Institute of Bioindustry. So this is very important. In the middle is my colleague, former colleague, Dr. Ma Yehe. This will attract the world leaders and the world scientists to look at this. So this is in general about our bioindustry, including the bioagriculture, and including the biofood, and also for the whole growth in China. We are talking about 30 trillion Chinese yuan by 2027. So the very, very big industry. And this industry, as you know, this give you an overview from 2016 to 2020, and see the growth of this entrepreneurship. So in general, so this is give you some example about this some of the industries entrepreneurship. We give you Henry Pharmaceuticals, Beijing, and everybody, a lot of people knows BGI Genomics, and also Weekend Bio. And just give you some examples for this. This is another example from BGI. They have a sequencers for the manufacturing of this biological apparatus. It's very strong, the whole field. So in the field crews, you already have some MGI sequencers there. Now, I want to come to my second part about the challenges or opportunities under the COVID-19. So as you know, biotechnology industry and biopharmaceutical industry grows very quickly. Because of that, China also faced a problem for the aging. So this is why this already mentioned about this upstream, midstream, and so this is from a very beginning when we had COVID, and the central government immediately, put their own policy, especially for the China FDA, to push forward for this method for the regulations. And regulations is very, very important. The local government also, they promote their local government for the vaccine development. They have renewed their regulation. So this is a give example. I'll give you an example for even from my own team. We developed our own protein subunit vaccines. We developed monoclonal antibodies, macromolecules as the antibody, for the treatment. So I called it, George's group. We did from the diagnosis to the vaccine. So this give you an example. So we published the first paper, one of the first papers for the antibody isolation for the homoneutralized antibody, published in Nature. And then we developed this one as a product in collaboration with Junshi and also with Eli Lilly in the US. Actually, a monoclonal antibody isolated from our lab and developed under the US. Though, as you know, we have the US-China conflict at the moment. But once you have some good products or good discovery, they like to collaborate with you. So this is a very good example. And for the vaccine, as you know, we have 7 strategies for the vaccine development for the COVID. First, inactivated vaccine. China, most of the Chinese, we use the inactivated vaccine. It's very popular. Second, live attenuated. This was not developed. Second, protein subunit vaccine. This is in my group, we have the first approved protein subunit vaccines to be used in clinics. Then viral vectored, influenza vectored, and also adeno-vectored. DNA vaccine, this time, is not being used, and then mRNA. And in China, we also have the mRNA vaccine, but it's not popular used yet, and virus-like particle. So it's not developed. Here, you are talking about 4 types: inactivated, protein subunit, viral vectored, mRNA vaccine. At the moment, in China, it's either it's already being used or under development. So this give you example. Junshi as a top alliance with Eli Lilly for antibody development. And this is in the book written by Dr. Miller with Özlem Tarici and Dr. Ugur Said. They developed mRNA vaccine. They mentioned about from my group, we are working on a receptor binding domain, RBD, for the vaccines. So we are using a different strategy. And protein subunit vaccines used 87% with back-test population, they use these vaccines. And this is clinical trials and published in New England Journal of Medicine. You are talking about 81.4. Of course, after the escape, the vaccine, we need to develop a new vaccine with a new variant. So this is a new variant, beta and Omicron. At the moment, we keep updating our vaccines. Now, foresee the future. Vaccine is very important. What's the next disease? So the WHO mentioned about disease X. So in my opinion, could be anything in the future. This is the fake public health emergency of international concerns since the 21st century, starting from 2009, pandemic influenza H1N1, until recently, monkeypox. So we are facing so many problems. Of course, Zika, all the Brazilian people might remember 2016, you have a Zika outbreak. So in my opinion, I think from avian influenza virus to Zika virus, you always have this attack from the emerging, re-emerging viruses. And the third part I would call for the China and Brazil collaboration, for the vaccine development, for the emerging virus effect, and also with the BGI, for the development of the any other products. So this is Dr. Carlos Morio, and when he visited China, and we have this statue, Zika virus, and this is 2017. I met your former Brazilian Academy of Sciences President Luis Davidovich, and that's in 2017. I visited the field cruise with Nishia for the MOU in 2017, and then we had something in the meeting in Shenzhen, that in 2018. Because we have this mutual visit. A lot of my colleagues with the field crews, and our vice president of the China Academy of Sciences with Nishia again. And this is our interaction for the Infectious Disease Research Center, a joint center between the field crews and the Chinese Academy of Sciences and China CDC. Foresee the future, I think academia industry cooperation for China and Brazil, I think our future is very bright. I'm calling for the future collaboration between China and Brazil. I think I will stop here. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much for this very informative session where we could see some good experiences. And we have some very 10 minutes time for some discussion and questions. And but first, I would like to highlight what we have here, what we have heard here, which is really important for us, considering where and at what time we are now in Brazil. So we have seen that Korea, with this strategy for self-sufficiency, has a very robust or a very impressive and enthusiastic target of 80% of self-sufficiency in 2030, which is a number that we should take a look and think about Brazil. What is our self-sufficiency regarding vaccine administrations here? We have some quite good examples with flu vaccine, yellow fever, and some good examples here, but we still don't have this number, and it's quite impressive. And also, we have seen the route for Korea on having and establishing a hub for biotechnology, right? Having establishing a training hub where they export knowledge to other countries, which was really important strategy, and also developing CMOs in Korea, right? Which is something that in Brazil we have just started, right? Recently we have the launch of the first public CMO in São Paulo State, and also we have the private CMO also that was launched this year. So which is something that we have to think. We have, for example, in Butantan, we have about 100 researches for new biotechnology products, which are in early stages, where we need places to build a bridge to products that could be used for clinical trials and for experimental steps for regulatory approval, where we don't have all the capacity to do that without using CMOs. So this is something that we have to consider. And also in China, very impressive numbers and very impressive strategy, 5-year strategy for this, what was called, which is very interesting, bioeconomy. Is not only focusing on a small part of the biotechnological product, but also China has the impressive possibility to control the whole chain. We know that when we think about, when we say we have self-sufficiency for flu vaccine or for yellow fever vaccine or other vaccines we do here, we know that we still depend on a lot of products or equipments or reagents or a lot of things that come from external countries, which in many cases is China or European or US. So how independent we are if we don't control the whole chain like China is aiming. And in the pandemic situation, we have seen that, right? Lacking a lot of basic materials for the self-sufficiency. So this is something you have to consider. Doing that, I would like to ask one question for you, Chris, which is considering what you have studied from Korea and how you have shown that investments come from government and also private. So how do you see and which kind of advice you would give on balancing these funds that come from government or private, right? Brazil, we have a strong now politics on stimulating from government the self-sufficiency, but what percentage this should represent in a good strategy for the self-sufficiency and for an example like Korea?
Well, that's a really tough question. I don't think I can talk about percentages. I think going back to Korea, what you see, I would say the government funding goes a lot into manufacturing. So as they built the first CMO, then it was strengthening clinical trials. Now again, vaccine manufacturing on the large scale. The private investments from the companies, there were times when 50% of the wins would go into R&D in the company. So a lot of the innovation in the companies were paid by the companies, and I would say the government funds went more towards the whole strategy. Where do we want to go? What facilities do we need for that? Relying a little bit on then also academia, the small companies, people having bright ideas that the innovation comes, let's say, independently. But then there's also the right fund. You cannot forget, which is in between the public and the government, so there's another source of funding to support the innovation, I would say. But about percentages, I cannot speculate.
That's right. No, interesting that you say that these funds, which in Brazil we have very limited applications. We have very few applications. When we consider Right Fund or Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, which is represented here, and other funds that could help us not to depend only on the governmental money to jump this. An important highlight that you mentioned also was the prioritization. Korea decided and selected vaccines, some vaccines that they aiming to do and make self-sufficient. It's not all of them. It's some of them that, which is important for that population, right? This prioritization is fundamental. And the team here that used to work with me in Anvisa knows that we always used to say, when everything is priority, nothing is priority. So we have to keep this in mind, otherwise we'll reach nowhere. And Dr. Gao, just to finish, and I want to hear and also ask for a word of advice to our country, considering what you have seen in this bioeconomy policy in China. So what would be your advice to us, Brazil, to aim for self-sufficiency and to control the chain, the whole chain, as you mentioned, as a pillar for bioeconomy?
As I said from the very beginning, you know, China have our own system. So this is why we have the whole chain, you know, as a closed circle in China, because we have a different system and plus a big population. So in my opinion, Brazil, you know, is your system is different, you know, from China. My advice for the whole bio-industry or bioeconomy, maybe Brazilian government would try to figure out and find out, you know, the gaps, and what you would put your chain as a closed circle to which one you should, you know, under such a globalized world, which part the Brazilian government should invest more or encourage the VC to invest, which one you should collaborate with some country like the US, China, or any other European countries. I think this needs some kind of strategic plan. So I think this is very important. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, I have seen the 2 minutes sign, so I believe we could take one question from the audience, if there is anyone who wants to ask. I'm not seeing any raised hands. Renato Streck, please.
Thank you. Renato Astray, Instituto Butantan researcher. So I would like to highlight one common feature of this, the two experiences and one difference. The common is that we saw two very strong government investments in both of the cases. And one difference is that in China we have a big market, but not in South Korea. So I think that in South Korea example, they had to focus not only in their own market, but in the outside market also. So my question is, in both cases, maybe, how the government could make the policy to the different companies don't overlap their portfolios of vaccines and develop this. What was the policy? Because we see that in Korea we have this kind of sequential programs that were being done, but I think that if the pharmas were competing with the same product, it would be very tough to reach.
Well, who wants to take first? Chris?
I'm not sure. I have to admit I know the answer. I mean, the Korean biotech is really coming up now. It's not like a landscape that you would have a GSK, Merck, and Novartis in the same country competing. So, but to be honest, I don't know how they decided maybe who will work on the HPV, who will work on the other one. So apologies for that.
Dr. Gao?
Yes, and for China, as you know, this time, give you an example for the COVID-19. you have almost 100 small business. They entered into this COVID-19 vaccines. So many US VC, they got into this, I call it very, very narrow tunnel for the vaccine development. So from that's the government would encourage for that. And meanwhile, in my opinion, that's lessons we should learn. And so after, these 4 years, at the moment, we have some VC, they need to go back to see what the resources they have already, wasted. So government encourage more VC to get into some small business. Meanwhile, you might have some small business, they waste their resources. So this is something in China, we need to have a more or highly regulated policy to see the future. Thank you.
Well, it's clear that in the case of Brazil, where we have limited resources, we have to consider this. This is an important question because overlapping is competing resources which are already limited. So we have to know and we have to establish a policy. It is important here to know where we can go, where we should go, and how we avoid this situation. Well, with that, I'd like to thank Chris, thank Dr. Gao, thank you for the audience, and see you in the next session. Thank you.
Thank you.